Hi, my name is Sulan 10, and this is Nakedly Yours. Hey, what's up, everybody? So today I'm here with two phenomenal women who have both been married, and well, one is currently still married, and we're praying for a long, prosperous marriage. Amen.
Amen.
And unfortunately, my baby girl, well, we're going to get into whether it was unfortunate or not, but my baby girl to my right, to y'all left, is divorced, recently divorced actually. But today our topic is marriage, and we're going to really dive all the way in and talk about marriage, wedding, emotions, everything, y'all. You know, we get deep here. So before we start, I just want to start with my guests introducing themselves. Who would like to go first?
Happy to. Okay. My name is Raquel. I'm 29 years old. I've got a 19-month-old baby boy called Micah. And yeah, that's me.
Okay.
My name is Chanice. I am 32. I have two boys. One is 14, soon to be 15, and one is 3.
So where are you hiding the pool of youth, all the water? Because I'm gonna need a dosage. You know?
She looks amazing.
I'm gonna have to say that's top secret, but thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, all jokes aside, let's get into it. First, I want to start with you guys. Like, how long have you been married, and how long were you married?
I've been married 3 years.
Oh, so you early.
I'm still early.
You still in that honeymoon phase?
No.
Oh,
hell no.
Oh, how long did the honeymoon phase last? 'Cause you seem like you've been out of it for a minute.
I'll be honest with you. I think honeymoon ended when baby came on the scene.
Oh,
Fair enough.
Oh, we're
That's
gonna
what
have to get into that.
I'm gonna keep it real. I love my baby, but yeah.
Yeah, it got real
It
quick.
got real quick.
It wasn't just husband and wife; it's mommy and daddy now.
Yeah.
That's a whole different story.
Absolutely.
I get that. And how long were you married, baby?
Well, I was married for just over a year.
Just over
Just
a year.
over a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Very
Okay,
short
and
marriage. We were together for a lot longer than
how long have you been divorced for now?
that. We got
Officially.
the divorce went through in January 2018.
Oh, wow. So
Yes.
it hasn't been long. It's about a year.
Yeah, just
Okay.
over a year.
And okay, how did you guys meet? So I just want to give everyone a quick background. How did you guys meet your husbands or ex-husband, and how did you get into marriage?
Okay.
Our topic.
You got time?
I got time.
Okay, so the first time I laid eyes on my husband, I was in a relationship. So nothing.
I've been hearing that a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody meets their husband when they're with their boyfriend. I mean, don't let your boyfriend block you from your husband. Is all I'm really hearing, to be fair. Just
Yeah, so we were at a charity event, and I was volunteering at the event, and I was facilitating the networking game for the evening. Like I said, because I was in a relationship, nothing much happened, but I do remember us locking eyes during the night, and I remember intentionally telling myself to look away, and I found that weird because I'd been in a relationship for over a year up to that point, and I'd never looked at another man and thought, look away. So that did strike me at the time, and I did think he was attractive. I did think he was cute.
well, he's your husband now, so you
Better. You better think he is. So that was November 2012. And then he ended up adding me on Facebook around February, March 2013. So there was like no contact, no communication between that time. But apparently he'd gone looking for me. He'd been asking his friends, who is she? Who is this angel? In his words.
he was trying to sweet you.
I'm telling you.
Okay.
I
It
fell
worked.
for it. It worked. It worked. Nobody knew, but he eventually found me on Facebook, added me on Facebook, and sent me a message. Quite sure I accepted the friend request. However, I didn't reply to the message.
Why was that? Were you still in a relationship?
I was still in a relationship, though it was, now I can see it was now winding down. It was coming to its last few months. But also the message read, it started with, I think I met you at a networking event. And I was like, boy, if you met me, you would know about it. I'm Raquel.
She was not playing no games. No games.
I just thought, I ain't got time for this. Ain't nobody got time.
Big mood.
I'm telling you.
Mood.
So I think it was a month or two later, he then added me on LinkedIn. So guy, he was persistent.
Yeah, he knew what he wanted.
Exactly. So I accepted the friend request, and I could see he's an investment manager. Very impressive. But what impressed me was, or what struck me about that, is the fact that I wanted to move into wealth and investment management.
And so lined up perfectly. Okay.
Yeah. So I felt like, he could come into use, but I didn't act on it. Again, I was winding down with the previous relationship. So nothing happened. We just accepted each other's friend requests. I was interested in having a chat with him just because I was fresh out of uni and I needed some direction, but I didn't reach out to him or anything. Anyway, I then got a job at a bank about a month or two later after he added me. And I obviously had to change my status on LinkedIn to reflect that. And he did not waste any time in sending me a congratulatory email or message.
He really knew what he wanted.
I'm telling you.
Okay.
And then I thought, you know what, this is my chance. Like, I've already checked out your profile. I'm just going to go straight into it. He had also opened with, I owe you a drink, based on me getting that job. He didn't, because I don't know him. But I was like, well, to be honest, I wouldn't mind having a chat with you, because I can see you work in as an investment manager, and I'd like to move into wealth and investment management. So if you wouldn't mind sharing some advice with me, we can meet up on that basis. And he obviously jumped at that opportunity. So technically, our first meetup was a professional.
How long did it stay professional?
It was literally that one meeting. But I should have known, because that professional meeting, he took me to Hicks in Mayfair. And I should have really picked up from then that this guy is clearly putting in more effort than, you know.
I mean, you should have picked up from how he messaged you on Facebook, found you on LinkedIn, and stayed persistent.
I should have.
You didn't pick up from all of that?
I didn't.
Okay,
My head was honestly not there.
It was in work.
Okay. Absolutely.
I respect that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we met up at Hicks. I didn't wear any makeup. I went straight from work. I was in uniform. I really didn't make any effort. We ended up speaking for about an hour in total that night about my actual career, and ended up spending the rest of the night just speaking about, more personal.
I'm going to clarify it for you. It was never a business meeting. If you spent an hour talking about career and the rest talking about personal, that's a date. That's
Absolutely.
a whole date.
But I was just so fresh out of something by then. I'd just come out of it. So
your mind wasn't
my mind wasn't there. And I had actually purposed in my heart that I wouldn't do guys for a while. I just wanted a break, because for as long as I could remember, I had been in something since like the age of 15 at least. So by this time I had also embarked on my journey in Christianity. I'd been baptized like the year before. No, maybe 6 months. Sorry, a year and a bit before. So I was just trying to use this opportunity to just seek God and find myself in him. So that's why my head wasn't there. And what was beautiful about that meetup with Rodney, my husband, was the fact that I was able to share a lot of my journey as a Christian with him, and I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel silly for telling him about the fact I was in church 3 times a week, serving, having prayer meeting in addition to that with my girls at my house, and Bible studies. Like I could share all of this with him, and he actually got it. I was really pleasantly surprised, because up until then, when I had spoken to guys, it was always me sort of like preaching at them and talking about God and spirituality and encouraging them to get more closer to God. Whereas with him, it's like he had something to add, and I was just so
he brought something to the table.
Something. So it was a really nice first professional meetup. A few days later, he sent me a text, and he said, I want to like officially ask you out on a date. I was obviously really flattered, because we really got on that meetup. So I agreed. And he went away for a week after that for work. So we agreed that we'd meet up the next weekend. Before we met up, the Saturday before we met up, the Wednesday, I took myself to midweek service just to really see if I could get some clarity from God, whether this was his will, because I knew I had sort of vowed, literally the moment I'd gotten off the phone with my ex, a month, maybe 2 weeks before that. It was all so close. I had literally vowed that I just like as I'd come off the phone to him crying in bits that, you know, I'd broken up with him. Like, I don't want to be with anybody else. I just want to be with you, God. I just want to love you and seek you and just serve you, you know? So I was really like after like all the flattery worn off, you know, with Rodney asking me out, I was like, Rick, you're getting caught up again. Like, this is your weakness.
Check yourself a little
you
bit.
know, like clearly the devil is trying to try you. Do you understand? Like, he knows this is your weakness. Yeah, that is what I told myself. Absolutely. So what happened was I went to midweek service, convinced myself I'd heard from God that this is not right, and came back and told my mom. I formulated a text to Rodney to say that I'm not going on the date. It's just not the right time. It's not you, it's me. And my mom went ballistic. I had never seen her like this. She was like, literally, you are going on that date. And I was like, I was so taken aback because my mom had never pushed me for marriage, pushed me to be in relationships, pushed guys with me. She pushed me in education. She pushed me in career. I definitely felt that pressure, sometimes good, sometimes negative, trying to please her. So it was very strange to see her forcing me to go on a date. And she's my idol and I respect her and I trust her judgment. So I literally just agreed. I said, you know what, Mom, I'm going to go on the date just to shut you up, just to get you off my back and just to prove to you that nothing's going to happen and I don't want this and this is not the right time. So I literally just went to prove. Yeah, exactly. Went on the date and it was so lovely. He spoiled me rotten. I genuinely feel like God led him with each date in terms of just lining up a next date. Because my idea was to basically lock him off after every date because, you know, I was trying not to be in anything. But it just never happened. He would just always lock in another date, telling me what we're going to do, where we're going to go, and things like that. And also on the first date,
he was very intentional.
He was so intentional.
That's so important. I have to pick up on that.
So intentional.
That's so important.
The main thing I'd like to make a point of is that I wasn't looking for marriage. And if it's your time to marry, even you can't jeopardize it. Even you can't stop it because honestly, I did self-sabotage throughout the first few dates because I kept trying to lock it off. But I honestly believe God was in it because this guy was relentless and he saw something and he knew that this is my wife quite soon. And so he just carried on. And yeah, that's why we are here today. So I wasn't looking for marriage. I didn't even want marriage, but that was what God wanted for me. And I thought I wasn't ready because I had just come out of something. So I felt like I didn't want to get into something and then we get caught up and then it turns out it's just rebound. It's just a rebound. But I realized that towards the end of my relationship,
you were already beginning that healing process.
Exactly. And God had actually been preparing me for marriage and I didn't know it. So for instance, towards the last few months of my marriage, I had refused
your marriage, girl. I mean, relationship.
Relationship. Thank you for the correction. I don't want to confuse guys. But the last few months of that relationship, I had stopped doing pillow talk. I had entered that relationship baptized. We had slipped up previously. We did it like 2 or 3 times over that year and a half. But generally, we weren't having sex. But I felt like I was getting like really deep revelations from God as I was seeking him, especially towards the end, that even if you're not like having sex with a guy, if you are giving them your ear before you sleep, words are so powerful. If you're telling them certain things and you're letting them speak into you, you are building ties. And I felt like I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that anymore if I wasn't sure if he was the one. And I no longer wanted to move forward in the relationship unless I knew it was God's will, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I just started cutting back and distancing myself on the basis that I cannot give myself to a man in that way unless I have the go ahead from God, unless first God is my number one. So the reason I cut off pillow talk was because I wanted God to be the last thing I heard before I slept.
Amen.
I wanted, it was getting really deep, but what I was expecting from that guy that I was with, I was expecting him to start getting ready for marriage as well and sort of start following what I'm doing. But instead he saw me as game playing. And it's because he was just not on the same page. He thought I was just trying treat him mean, keep him keen, and and
No,
play
ain't
the
nobody
game.
got
But
time
no,
for that.
like what I can see now is that God was preparing me for marriage, and that's why I had to sort of, you have to, I believe, make God your husband first before you can
Oh, 100%.
give yourself to somebody else. And I also felt like
100%.
he had to seek God in order to find my heart. So therefore I had to come away and let him do that. So there were all these things happening that I didn't realize. All these processes were going on in my head. All these prayers were happening. All these deliverances were happening from past relationships and soul ties. And I didn't realize that all of that was happening towards the end of the relationship, which was why I could go straight into that relationship when, Rodney came in, because I was at a point where I was not seeking God for marriage. I think I was ready for marriage when I said, God, I don't want marriage, I want you.
Yeah, that in itself, that's where you have to be.
That's
can't.
it.
I feel like people kind of get it misconstrued a little bit, but your first relationship and the first man, we always get told it's our father before our worldly father is our heavenly father. And I know not everybody is religious, but in the sense of there's something more than us. There's something more than right here, right now. And for those who are religious and per se like us who are Christians, God has to be our first father. God has to be our first love. And when I think about the relationship that you have with God, and we always talk about relationship, everything that you would expect from a man is basically what God already is giving you.
Absolutely.
And everything that you're willing to do for a man in a relationship, you should be willing to do for God. Too often we're so willing to go above and beyond for men of this world before we're willing to go above and beyond for the man that created us. And that should be above everything else. Facts.
Absolutely. That's my story.
Yeah, we got the whole story.
It was a good one. It was a
Long,
very good
but
one.
yeah.
How did you meet your husband?
I met him over 10 years ago, so when I was in my early 20s. It was shortly after a few years after I had just had my eldest child now. So I hadn't really been in the dating scene. I kind of was a new mum, had just moved into my own place. I was kind of just getting used to all of that. And it was a friend of mine that, we kind of used to have like little evening conversations like, oh, Shan, you need to get your groove back. Like, are you going to date? It was, and I think I was kind of looking to kind of start dating. So long story short, we had a mutual friend, which turned out to be the husband, and she introduced him to me. And how she introduced me to him was via social media. So it wasn't like a personal introduction. It was just like, oh, have a look at this guy. He was raised Pan-African, so he used to write really inspirational quotes. He was really informative just about things. And for that time on social media, that was quite the opposite. I wasn't used to somebody being so, so insightful. It really intrigued me. Something silly as well, but my friend is also really into star signs, so she was like, oh, your stars are aligned. And I was like, oh, do you know what? Why not? I'm kind of interested in him. So we ended up seeing each other at a function. We exchanged numbers. He was quite a well-known host, so I was a little bit like, is this really for me? It's not really discreet. You kind of know a lot of girls. A lot of girls know you. Is this the kind of thing that I kind of want to be in? So I was always a little bit reluctant. But long story short, we had a first date. We literally met up, and that was like my first ever one night stand with him. Well, I say one night stand, but it wasn't a one night stand.
Well, I say one night getting married.
Yeah. Well, I say one night stand because that was the first time that I'd met a guy, gone to his house as a date and slept with him on that occasion. So after that, I was kind of like, yeah, this can't be good. Like, this can't be good. But he was quite persistent after that, reassuring that, he really liked me. He didn't want it to be this. He was the one that kind of was like, this is not what I want. I really like you. Like, how do you feel? And when I saw that he was like that, I was kind of like, oh, okay. I kind of felt like I took the control back a little bit. So I still kept him at arm's length because I wasn't sure. And I kind of wanted to feel him out around this whole music thing that he was doing. Also, if I'll be honest, I think at that time, kind of like DJs and people into music, I didn't think that would be the type of person that I'd want to settle down with. I always thought, I would want to settle down with somebody that works, has every day 9 to 5. Long story short, he was quite persistent. We used to go out on dates. He used to take me out and stuff like that. And then I'd say coming up into about a year into us dating unofficially, he called me and said, "Oh, I just want to let you know, I'm having a baby. The baby's due in a few months. I know this might come as a shock to you, but do you know what? As much as I like you, I really want to settle down with this woman. I just want to I don't want to be the stereotypical black man. I want to settle down with this woman. I want to try and make it work." Because at the time, and I can be now, it's a bit like, oh, red flags. But at the time, because my heart wasn't set into him, it wasn't really official. Not that I was dating anybody else, but I was a little bit like, do you know what? I respect the fact that you want to, me and you are unofficial. If this woman's pregnant and you want to make it work with her, I respect that. I would rather you raise your child than another single child out there. Do you know what I mean? So I respected that. So although it was like, afterwards I felt a little bit hurt, but then it was like, okay, do you know what? This is respectful. He's a good man. We can be friends. You know what I mean? He could have strung me along. You know what I'm saying? Both of us along. So I respected that he didn't. Yeah.
How do you unofficially date someone for a year?
Well, the reason why I say that is because we would go out on dates every weekend, every other weekend, but we never had any formal conversations in regards to, are you seeing anybody else? I think it was for me because I didn't really care. I was just kind of like getting myself back out there. I wasn't really trying to...
Can you say that was like going on dates for a year, every weekend for like a year?
Yeah, but we weren't necessarily... Well, yeah. For me, it was...
It's not a judgment.
No.
I'm just thinking about it.
I understand.
Myself, if I was dating someone for a year, like we're going out every week and that's going on for a year, maybe that's where I've gone wrong. But I'm sorry, I'm not giving you a year of my time once, twice a week for it to then be classed as unofficial dating. No, that has had to lead into something. Do you feel like you were dating with purpose or you were just dating to date?
Do you know what? At the time, we wasn't referring to it as dating. It wasn't anything. We were just...
Going out as friends?
Yeah, we were just going out as friends, and on the odd occasion... very rarely we would sleep together. Does that make sense? It wasn't like, so when I say, the reason why I say dating for a year is because like we didn't have a sexual relationship for the whole time. We would often do things together. Do you understand what I'm saying? It would be more like, there'll be times when he was job hunting and he would call me and he'd be like, oh, do you know what? Can you help me out with this? He would come over, I would help him out with the CV. He would go home, let me know what happened with it. And then kind of like to say, oh, thanks for doing that. We might go out for breakfast like the next morning or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So it was, I say dating because with social media now, it's probably closest to dating that anything. Do you understand what I'm saying? But along that time, there was an occasion where he said to me, if I was ever going to marry anybody, it would be you. And it wasn't shocking to me. It was like, when he said it, I felt the same, and I still, it's like a catch-22 because I still had that like, I don't really know how I feel about you. But when we were together, there was something different. So that's when I started thinking like, do you know what? I think that I have more feelings for you than I really am prepared to admit to myself. And then I kind of like allowed myself to open up to that fact. So then when he did say, do you know what? This other lady's pregnant and I'm going to try and make this work. I suppose the love that I kind of had for him kind of allowed me to respect him being a better man. Does that make sense? So that was that. So because of that, he went off and had his child and stayed in his relationship. But as I said, we always had quite a I'd like to say spiritual connection when we were together. So we maintained a friendship. We stayed friends. He had children. He had another child, and I had my son. So we used to do activities with the children, like a lot. We would very rarely spend time together alone. We would always do things with the children, and that's kind of like how he became familiar with my son, because we were always around. And that's kind of how he became familiar with like some of my friends and family. And then we lost contact for a few years. And then we met back up at a friend's funeral, which obviously is a bad circumstance, but we met back up at a friend's funeral. And this is what I think the message that I would like to get out is that when I saw him again, you know, I was coming up to 28, 29. I was changing career. I had always been working, but I was going into a career now. I felt like, oh, do you know what? I'm at a place now where I can accept somebody into my life. I'm at a place where I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready. And in the times that we kind of lost contact, like people would always message me like, oh, have mutual friends, and they would always be like, oh, you know, he says that, you know, you're the one that got away. He always thinks about you. He misses you, you know, he cares about you. Everyone would say, whenever I'd see him in person, I could always see that he like was fumbling over himself. He didn't know how to act. So he asked me out at the funeral. We went out. What did we do? We went to watch Lion King. And then he was like stuck to me like glue. I would finish work, he'd be outside my workplace like, oh, I'm here to drop you home. Within a couple of weeks, he was at my house almost every other evening. I'm not gonna lie to you, at first I was a little bit like, oh, this is happening a bit fast. I used to feel a little bit like he was a bit too much, but I think what I decided was, do you know what, like, why have you got these barriers? He's a nice guy. You know him for a long time. You've liked him. You've always felt that you've had a spiritual connection with him. He knows your child. You have the same culture.
A lot of boxes.
He ticked a lot of the silly boxes that I had at that time. Long story short, we went to spend some time with his family up in Sheffield. And on the day that we were coming home, just from the conversation that we had before regarding if we were going to marry anyone, it would be each other. I think when we got together and it was official, I think it was kind of like, you know, I don't know, it was just like an unspoken thing, like, okay, are we going to get engaged? Are we not? So as I said, when we were at his aunt's in Sheffield one afternoon, on the blow-up bed with my headscarf on, he was like, oh, like, babe, like, acting all funny. I was thinking, like, what's wrong with him? Why is he really funny? He went outside, holding his nose bridge, coming back in, coming back out. Do you know, like, then he got down on one knee, half in tears, no ring, and yeah. And my youngest son was there as well. My eldest son was there. And he popped a question. And at that point, we had been going out officially for about 3 months. That was just him, really, isn't it? Like a little bit half-hearted. But I think a lot of this is a lot of why I was so receptive to marrying him, and why, although it sounds like, you know, things just kind of flow, I think it was more a case of what I wanted rather than what was actually happening. And I say that because I've always been somebody that's wanted to have a family, get married. And although all of those things happened, it wasn't my idea of how it would happen. I think that he gave the bare minimum of my dream, and I just grabbed it. And when he asked me to marry him, I think I was a little bit scared to say no, because I felt like perhaps we would have to happen
again.
Yeah, it won't happen again, or we'd have to break up. No, not even that it wouldn't happen again, but maybe he would think that I don't want to be with him.
Okay, yeah, like that.
But then also it was like, well, do you know what? I'm turning 30 soon. I can show the world, yes, I'm eligible. Somebody wants me, you know. These are all the things that you're supposed to aspire to by that age. Yeah. So that was
a
it.
lot of pressure. I think it's good that you mentioned that, because a lot of girls I feel like as women, we kind of grow up and we have to have our lives planned out in terms of our romantic life. We have to meet our love by this age, and we have to get married by this age, and have our children by this age. And that pressure alone puts us in a position where when we get to certain ages, we start to lower our standards or kind of let down our boundaries a little bit.
Definitely.
Because we feel as though it's like we have to meet society standards instead of our own. It's like, okay, forget our standards. We need to meet society standards.
I remember consciously lowering my standards. So I can say that now, black and white. But at the time, it would be a case of like, oh, well, he doesn't do this. But, oh, do you know what? you're not
Make
perfect,
excuses
you're
for
not
it.
this, you're not that. Oh, do you know
girl,
what?
no.
Maybe and
Oh, don't bring yourself down like that, baby. We don't do that here. No, not at Naked Leaders, okay? We only uplift here. But
Amen.
no, it's like, it's a real fact though, I have a friend that when she was turning 30, she felt really low.
Mm-hmm.
And really depressed that she didn't achieve everything she wanted to achieve because she had this plan and she didn't get there. And realistically, what we plan for ourselves, just because we plan it for ourselves doesn't necessarily mean that's the plan that's already been laid out for our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, I'm happy you're here to say that so that other females can understand, actually, you don't need to do that. Because when you do that, it won't end well.
And something that was mentioned, we mentioned earlier, I think definitely it was more about, when you think of getting married, I think it's more about the wedding that I thought about. I kind of felt like, my family, his family, the pictures, the everything. And that sounds really like shallow. And
it's facts. Everyone thinks about that.
I think the reason why I say that is because, not even that I wasn't prepared for the work that it took to be part of the marriage, but I was prepared, but I didn't identify whether the person that I was entering into the situation was prepared, or even if we were compatible long term, because I don't think that love, passion, lust, the ability for one person to compromise is grounds for a relationship.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And
let alone a marriage.
Let's talk about that. What do you think it takes to be married, to have a successful marriage?
Well, I'm not somebody that was I've not always been religious. I grew up in church. My grandparents always used to take me to church, but it was more of a burden than anything else. It wasn't something that I embarked in my teenage years. A lot of my friends currently are religious, go to church regularly. And I would say that not necessarily religion, but good family and faith. If you both answer to the same person, no matter where you go wrong, the answer that you get back will always be the same.
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What do you feel are like key things you need to have a successful marriage?
For me, we put a lot of things in place. We had we had so many discussions, so many discussions, like making sure we are on the same page. Where we weren't, we would obviously have to review whether it can still work, whether it's fine. If there's a gap here, can it still work? Does one have to compromise? Do you understand? So we had a lot of a lot of dialogue, and this dialogue was mainly spurred by the fact we were doing premarital counselling, because Rodney's pastor, who we were having the premarital counselling sessions with, is also like a psychologist. So so it was so helpful because he would cover the science as well as the godly aspect of relationships and understanding compatibility, and looking into our backgrounds, looking through our experiences, and what drives us, what shapes us as individuals. And, having those conversations with him would bring out so many things, which would then cause us to then, force us to have uncomfortable and, real, honest conversations about, whether we could really do this. So for me, premarital counseling was our savior, I think, definitely, in terms of getting us ready.
So that foundation was laid in. You're right. Foundation is a huge part of marriage, because if the foundation is rocky, inevitably things going to fall apart. Whether it be at the start or at the end, things will fall apart. So I feel like that's a really good one. So faith, and then counseling and having solid foundations
100%.
I think those two together, plus obviously so much more, do lead to a successful marriage. What made you believe that you were ready for marriage?
I remember one day asking God, what makes me worthy to get married? Because I'm confused. Because based on my history, it doesn't tally, right? I don't think I'm worthy yet. And I remember him saying, the moment you learn how to bend down on your knees and pray, you are ready. And I thought, what does that mean? And I soon got the revelation that I can entrust a family to you, knowing that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be challenging. You're going to face hard times. But knowing that you know how to call on me, you can do it. And I was like, whoa.
That's
Like, listen, for me, it was like the fact I knew how to pray. And that meant I had a relationship with God. I had communication with God. He was literally my helper, my provider. He was my everything. And therefore, I could do it.
Who were your examples of marriage growing up? Did you have like a solid example of like husband and wife? Did you grow up in that type of
Sadly, no. My parents were divorced by the time I was 4. And unfortunately, around me, I was surrounded by aunties who are single mothers. When I did see mum and dad relationships, it was all wrong anyway. So, those that had managed to stay together, the dynamic was just all wrong. The wife is the head. The wife is the head of the household. There's no affection. The dad is silent. He just works, comes home. He's not involved. Things like that. It doesn't help also that my husband, he didn't either. So his parents stayed together, but I loved his honesty very early on in our relationship. He was like, they're together. I do not want a marriage like this. They just stuck it out and they love the life they've created together, but they do not love each other. And I do not want that. Thankfully, we were able to find examples in our church. So Rodney's pastor is happily married. Within my church, we had premarital counselors who have been married 27, 30 years. My own bishop has been married. At the time, he was like 17 years. So that we could see
that it was marriage
possible.
Could be possible.
Yeah, and these people were open. And these people allowed us to ask questions. These people, would hold events, things like that, which would give us the opportunity and the platform to really, scrutinize their marriages and learn from them. And they would be open and share. So this is why faith is such a big, I've gotten everything that I needed for marriage through faith, because that was the platform for me to learn and do so. Do
you have a good example of marriage?
Well, no, but I think that my example was in a sense that, again, I'm from a single parent home, but my dad was around, but he has several other children. So I think I'm probably the eldest from him of perhaps 12 that he's come clean about. In regards to like other women in my family, like my aunts and my nan, my mum's mum, all of the women in my family are anti-men. They all feel that, they're very strong women, but they all feel that, men are their downfall. And my example of my dad is that, as I said, he's got several other children. Him and my mum had me extremely young. They were 16 when they had me. So yeah, it was warped. But the view that I took on that was that I wanted to be different. I wanted to get married. Everything that they said to me about men this, men that, men are cheaters, men this, men that, I always kind of was just like, well, that's not my experience. That's not my experience. And I always had an open mind and always decided that how I had my family was never going to be, anti-men. That's not what I wanted for myself. In regards to my husband, I think that the example that set was that I believe that as long as he loved me and he was there, I could maintain, fix and uphold everything. Did that make sense? I don't know. I think that the women in my family made me think that men didn't have any purpose other than to be a man, which just their presence was enough. Okay. Do you understand what I mean? And I think that I felt that everything else I kind of had to maintain, which definitely isn't the case, So coming from a single parent home didn't make me anti-men. It made me pro-men, if anything. I got married for the wrong reasons, and I think that's why I'm divorced. Yeah. So I think that is the difference, because even hearing Raquel's story, it comes across as like, oh, does she not know that doesn't sound right? But at the time, I don't think I did. It's only on reflection that I can say, this was never really right, and love wasn't going to be enough.
But that's the thing. Love, oh my gosh. Love being enough is one of those tricks, You always think love is going to be enough. Love is not enough. It takes so much more than love to make a relationship work. And I feel like people go wrong with that a lot. They hold on to the love and they stay in the pain because there's love. Love can be in pain. Love can be in hurt. Love can be in toxicity. Mm-hmm. Believe me, I can be with the most toxic person and love them still. Mm-hmm. Love is not enough.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
So we have someone happily married, someone recently divorced. As for myself, I'm in a weird place. I'm in this place of like, I don't know whether marriage is for me. Probably as of late, I'm starting to open up to it a bit more. But if you had asked me like a month ago, 2 months ago, I was like, hell no. Marriage? Who? I'm not getting married at all. I was planning to be like, Taraji P. Henson's character in Think Like a Man, where she was completely career driven. I said, I'm gonna get myself 2 cats. They're gonna chill at home. I'm gonna be at work all day. I'm gonna come home. By that time, my daughter's probably gonna be in uni or living her own life. That's cool. I feel like I'm more so opening up to love and the idea of romance now. But even with opening up to that, the idea of marriage itself is still gray area for me. But it's funny because we were talking earlier before we started filming, and I said that it's not necessarily that I didn't want it for myself, it's that I couldn't see it in my own life, you know? I don't know, because when I say it sounds so sad and so pathetic.
It doesn't. Why are you so closed off?
There's a lot of anxiety with the fact that I don't want to be divorced. I want to make that decision and be sure of myself. And it scares me, the fact that I'll never really know. And whoever you end up with is a big part of your life and kind of does navigate your life in some way to where
Very
your
much
life
so.
goes.
Absolutely.
And
very much so.
Like you say, you never know entirely until the very end of it all. You don't know whether you've made that right decision, and that scares the life out of me. The idea if I could possibly make the wrong decision based off love or all these things. And I think also, I just know within myself I have a lot of healing to do, because I personally, I'm not to judge anybody that does go into it like this, but I personally don't believe you can go into a marriage broken.
Absolutely.
Two
Definitely
broken
not.
people cannot fix each other, in my opinion. You know what I mean? And that's not to say you have to go into marriage like perfect. No, that's never the case. But you have to go in there actively healing. And I think the best way to put it is be self-aware. You don't have to be completely revived and completely fixed. No.
Are we ever?
But you have exactly. Are you ever? But you have to be self-aware.
I love that term.
So
Self-aware.
you know, exactly. You have to be self-aware and knowledgeable of yourself and your good and your bad and everything
of course,
in between.
so you can be accountable.
Exactly. So you can be accountable.
I'd like to add something. I didn't pick my husband. I could never pick my husband. If I picked my husband, he would look like my exes, because I'd always picked my exes. I didn't pick my husband. My husband does not look like the guy I had typically been with. I knew that if I wanted a different result, I had to do something different. And this time I did it with God. I didn't pick him.
And I think that's probably why I'm in the space I'm in, where I've always dated or been in relationships with intention and with purpose, like very direct approach of, okay, if I end up in a relationship with you, I know what I want from that relationship. And of course, what do you want? If a relationship is to develop and you think about the steps, inevitably it is supposedly meant to lead to marriage.
And that's where I went wrong. I felt like I always have steps. I always have a threshold. I always have this. And I was like, do you know what? Go with it. Unless something really detrimental happens, allow this relationship to be, allow love to flourish.
But that's what I did. But then for me, what I'm trying to say is that because I dated with such intention, I think I had seen marriage in the people that are now my exes. And when it didn't work out, it hurt me because I had dated with so much intention and put so much in, because if I'm now in a relationship with you in some way, shape, or form, I'm now preparing for marriage.
Right.
And if I'm preparing for marriage, that is, I'm going to do as it says and prepare myself for that. I'm preparing myself for that and giving. And when that all goes and you've given so much, and what are you left with? That's the tricky place you're in. And I think for me, like I said, I have a lot of healing to do before I get to that point again.
That's fair.
I just think it's quite sad when I think about it, the idea that I can really sit here and say, I can't see it for myself. It's not that I don't want it, but I really can't see it for myself. And I'm only saying this because I know a lot of girls feel the same. They've been in and out of relationships, and they've given so much of themselves to other people that they don't feel as if there's anything left to even feel worthy, like you said, or even feel like marriage is a possibility for them.
Absolutely.
But like you said, I want to pick up on what you said. It's getting back around to that place where you feel worthy and realizing, not even getting back to that place because you never stop being worthy, but realizing, coming to that realization, starting to love yourself enough. And I think one thing we've spoken about previously between us is the idea that you have to love yourself enough to heal, not heal to love yourself.
Yes.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yes.
Like you say about timing and everything, it's a tricky one when you think you're having that time for you. Someone else might be ready for that. And I think that kind of pushes people in different directions. And I think that in itself scares me a little bit. But
So are you implying that whilst you're taking time out to heal, that your husband could come, but you're not ready because you're having that?
Because I really am not in a place where it's just like I'm healing and I'm open to my husband coming. It's like I'm healing, I'm focused on work, and that's
You're
it.
closed.
You need to trust your process.
Yeah.
You need to trust the process. Why would God bring someone into your life prematurely when you're not ready? Why?
100%.
I know that if Rodney had come into my life 2 years later, I would have finished him. With my manipulation, with my game playing.
2 years earlier.
2 years earlier. Did I say later? Sorry.
Yes, girl.
What is wrong with me? I'm so glad you're picking them up, though. At least someone's awake. But yeah, if he had come in 2 years earlier, I would have ripped his heart out and thrown it on the pavement, literally. I'm so sorry to just keep coming with the same answer. But when you seek God for yourself, He will align everything.
100%.
Even if you feel like there's been delay, you've missed something, I believe that my God is a God of second chances. Like, you can't miss it. As long as you're just seeking Him. Not that you're being perfect. Not that you're not sinning. Not that you're not falling. But if you're just seeking Him, like, God, let your will be done in my life. Let your will be done in my life. That was my prayer. And God, I'm just going to seek you for you. And then listen, everything else is added. Everything else comes together. All you have to do is just seek God. Don't go and look for the man.
So then does that mean that people that are not religious are going to be single forever? Because I was at a point, and everything that you're saying now, I'm Christian. After I got divorced, I got baptized, and I've been celibate ever since. And it's something that I engage in. But prior to that, and with you saying that now, it makes me feel like, okay, so was everything because I wasn't aligned with God? Is that why my marriage wasn't right? Is that why I can see all the signs now, but is that why I didn't see all the signs before? Obviously, I know it's not as black and white as that, but not everybody is seeking God. And not everybody is seeking faith. So how do you become at one within yourself? I think it's about kind of perhaps your own inner peace, your own morals, your own relationships that you have with other people, how you're received by other people, the effect that you have on them. I think it's too much to say, seek God, because even when I was in the marriage and I was going through everything, it was like, you know what, go to church, pray. I was getting up, I was doing Rise to Victory. Shout out my friend who put that on 5 a.m. on a Tuesday and a Friday. My husband used to come church with me. We started going to church as a family. And I wasn't getting any revelation. Did that mean that I wasn't supposed to be with him? Did that mean that I wasn't in love? Like, do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
All right, put it like this. For those who are not religious, they can still pray.
Of course.
So I'll put it like this. If I'm a Christian, I'm praying to God. If I'm not religious, I would say pray onto yourself. Speak these things onto yourself. Because from a non-Christian perspective, I would have to say that you have to know that there is something more than you. Regardless of whether you're a Christian or not, you know that there is something more than
to you.
I should have put a disclaimer, right? Yeah. This is my personal journey.
Of course.
There are marriages thriving without God, and they're not Christians. Christians are divorcing just as much as those who are not. It's absolutely real. Do you understand? But this is what has worked for me, and so that's my truth. So that's why I have to share that. Now everybody puts their faith in something.
Of course.
Exactly.
To be in marriage, though, you can't be faithless. It's just not going to work. I've decided to put my faith in God, and that's how I have faith in my husband. So my faith is in my husband through God. Another person, somebody not religious, they've put all their faith in maybe their partner. Do you understand? And that's fine. That may be what works.
I feel like a lot of people don't realize that they're putting faith in anything.
They're always putting
Because let's say you're asking the universe to bring you something.
It's the same thing.
Faith in the
same thing. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's more about faith in general.
Coming back to what you said, that you were seeking God, but you didn't hear anything, you know. Sometimes God doesn't respond to us in the way that we expect.
Of course.
God could have been holding your hand the whole way through. He may have been the one giving you the strength to continue raising your boys. You know, like sometimes
we go. The one telling you to get the divorce.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been through a lot, and yet you're here today. is that not a testimony? Is that not God in
course.
itself? Do you understand? He may not have answered you in the way that you expected, but it doesn't mean he's not at work.
Of course.
Do you understand?
Of course.
It may not have ended the way that you wanted it to, but it doesn't mean that he's not with you. You have been opening up in a way that not a lot of people have that strength to.
Of course.
You have made so many learns, and I'm so confident that if it is God's will and if you want it for yourself and you go out again, you're not going to make the same mistakes.
Amen.
God is not looking for perfect people. Don't ever think that God was never with you. He absolutely is, even in our darkest moments, even when we don't feel him.
I agree.
What has been the darkest moment from your marriage and from your marriage so far? What has been the darkest moment?
I think for me, when he put his hands on me, that was probably the darkest moment. And that was the point where I thought to myself, wow, not only am I... It sounds like I'm saying everything negative about him. And I think throughout the marriage, I felt that my purpose, at first I was happy. I felt that my purpose was doing everything for him, you know, making sure the home was happy, making sure he was happy, making sure that I was there for him. And once I started doing that and started noticing that, you know, it wasn't being reciprocated, he didn't replenish me, even if it was just like an encouraging, have a good day today, babe. You know, that there was no replenishment. I just felt constantly exhausted and drained. And then when he put his hands on me, it was just like, well, you're doing everything that everybody says that men are. And I'm trying and I'm not getting anything back. And I couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Can see a reason to continue.
Yeah, I just couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel other than the vows that I had taken. And when I did used to pray, I just used to, and when I said it to you that I never used to hear God, now I believe, and even then I believe that he wasn't saying anything because there wasn't anything to say. I knew and he knew that I needed to leave, you know what I mean? So I think that was probably the darkest time when he put his hands on me, and there was no light after that.
There was no turning
back. And even praying, I couldn't imagine God saying to me, oh, don't worry, hopefully he doesn't do it again. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Sorry, I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm laughing at the idea.
That's the relationship. That's how I talk to God. I have to be, with him. So I couldn't imagine that. So I said, you have to go.
Is that what actually led you to being divorced?
I think that was the downward spiral. After that, we heavily started going to church even more. The pastor kept on reminding me that, I'm the woman, I maintain the household, try my best to, pray for him. Basically they were just telling me to pray for him. Don't worry what he's doing. You just keep praying for him. And
you got to pray for you too, baby.
And I was just exhausted throughout the marriage, throughout the relationship. I kept on seeing all the things that I was doing to uplift him, build him up, bring him together. I kept on seeing him flourish, and I just felt drained. Having that man in my house it's like I had no self-respect. And I think it started getting to a point where I would not address things so that it wasn't a situation that my son would have to be a part of. And I think my ex-husband, he became aware of that as well. So it it gave him room to, do whatever he wanted to do, or not take responsibility for things that he hadn't done, for example.
What has been your darkest moment so far?
Marriage is a war, or it's a battlefield, but it's so messed up because we're on the same side.
Yeah.
It's that real. It's so hard. It's the most challenging thing I've ever had to do.
But you wouldn't change it.
Absolutely not. And that's the reason why I needed God in this, because I needed to understand that this is what he wanted for me. And I needed to understand that there is purpose behind this marriage. But it is so hard, particularly once children get into it. I'm so upset that it's so hard, because we did everything perfect, like by the book, as far as a Christian relationship should go. We're both grounded in church. We're both serving, praying, reading our Bibles. We've done the marital counseling from the onset. We've continued doing marital counseling. Like, you're doing everything, but it's two people coming together from two different backgrounds. How do you expect it to be smooth sailing? I don't even have the same views as the people I grew up in the house with. I fight with the people I grew up in the house with, my own siblings, my flesh and blood. So what made me think I could come in and it was going to be smooth sailing? Absolutely not. It is not smooth sailing.
A lot of people, like we were talking before, strive for marriage. That is the optimum goal. I feel in a sense they believe it will fulfill some sort of hole, or it will fulfill something within themselves.
Absolutely not.
Do you feel
No.
I didn't even have to ask that question. Like, no.
No.
Do you feel fulfilled by marriage? Has marriage made you complete? Has marriage made you whole?
For me, being married isn't the end all, and being a mum isn't the end all. God put me on this earth with my own purpose and destiny. Marriage is an extension of that. Being a mother is an extension of that. But me in myself, I have a destiny. An independent destiny. And so going into marriage did not bring about that purpose anymore. So I don't get fulfillment in that sense of because I'm married. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
There is definitely much purpose in marriage.
You found a lot of purpose, but it hasn't fulfilled you in the way of this is your end and all, like you're complete and there's no more for you beyond this.
There's so much. There is so much that I haven't done yet.
When I got married, I kind of felt like we were saying it before, everybody wants what you think you don't have or what somebody else has. And I think that when I got into marriage and now that I'm divorced, I think I was really ungrateful for my life prior. The fact that I thought that getting married would be my purpose. This would be it. You know, I've got a child, I'm happy with my career. If I have a husband who loves me and I can show the world that someone loves me, that would be it. But no, I was happy. My home was stable. My finances were stable. My son was happy. Everything was happy. I don't know why I didn't appreciate myself. And I think that instead of joining somebody, I was expecting them to add to me, not knowing my worth already.
And I think that's important for people to understand that, like you said, marriage is not the end and all. And there is so much more purpose beyond the idea that as women, our purpose is to get married. Our purpose is not only to get married and to be wives and to be mothers. We have more than that to offer the world.
Absolutely.
And as much as we can sit here and talk about relationships and all this, there is so much more to us than relationships. And I'm happy that within the topic of relationships, within the topic of marriage, we can still get into that. We can still highlight that, which is why I'd like to ask you to give some advice to somebody that's single out there that is seeking out marriage.
Understand your self-worth. Compromising doesn't mean lowering your limits. Wanting to be submissive doesn't mean that you can't be independent or have your own goals or own aspirations. And I would say enjoy yourself. Let the marriage, if that is what you want, come to you. And you know what? Marriage isn't a be all and end all.
So as a single girl listening, you will never be more freer than you are now to go for your dreams. So spend every moment that you have doing that, and rather than feeling sorry for yourself, crying out for your husband. Like, that is a complete waste of time.
100%.
And I'm so sad when I meet girls just sulking, waiting for a guy, thinking that everything is going to come into place when the guy comes in. It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. Every season has its challenges, but you will never have singleness again, providing you're going to get married on the basis that you never, which is what we do. We go in there knowing we never want to be single again. We don't want to divorce. So use that time, because as much as we believe in equality in relationships, listen, marriage is about submission to one another. It's about compromise. It's about making time for one another. And you will never get this time back again being single, to just focus on yourself. Every single decision I make now, I'm now thinking about my husband and my son, including business opportunities. So use this time, because your singlehood and the foundations you lay in place for your singlehood will determine your marriage. So seize the moment in your singlehood. Love yourself. Be self-aware. Seek God, my personal opinion. And the type of person you create, the type of person you become during your singlehood will determine the type of person that you become in marriage.
I would love you to give some advice to someone that is married, newly married, or long-term married. And I would love you to give advice to somebody that is recently divorced.
Okay.
So
obviously it's coming from a complete place of humility. I have only been married 3 years, so I don't know it all. And I am literally learning as I go along. Persevere. Persevere. The perfect marriage is created. That's what I would say.
Mine is coming from how I'm dealing with it at the moment. I would say, regardless of who ended the marriage or whoever feels like they're in the right, accept your part
Wow.
in the demise of the marriage.
Wow.
Accept it. Because no matter how it looks to you or what you think they did, you definitely had a part to play in it, whether it's acceptance, turning a blind eye, or engaging with them. In regards to now, the journey that you're on now, being single, I would say learn to love yourself again. And the reason why I'd say to do that is because during the negative times, you probably did neglect yourself a little bit, and no one's going to love you like you. Just think of your future. Think of your future, stay happy, and don't rule out falling in love again. Even after getting divorced, the one thing that I will add is never be upset to admit that you might still care about the other person.
No, it's true, because if you hide that and you contain that, you will never truly heal. You have to be able to be honest with yourself in order to heal. Healing and growth takes a disgusting type of honesty, like a type of honesty that's just like, oh, damn, that type of honesty. And you know, a part of that honesty is being honest with yourself, and like you said, saying, actually, I still care about that person. It might not be romantic, but I still have a place in my heart for that person. Learning that and discovering that and figuring out the reasons as to why and working through that will help you to grow and to move on into another relationship in a healthy way without bringing any of the past into that. Because if you hide it and it's just like in the back of your mind, you're going to subconsciously bring it into your new relationship, and that will never work. This has been Nakedly Yours, and we've been speaking about marriage. Thank you to my two amazing guests. Just pray that you guys go on to prosper. Love y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.